On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Nightmare by Avenged Sevenfold.
Among many other things.
Probably, aside from Slayer, one of the most popular bands we've ever discussed. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kayle.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal. We like talking about it, and we're back. We're here.
We're back. We missed a week, right?
Yeah, we missed a week, and working from home and very little energy.
Yeah, it's hard to find energy when you can't get up and go. Have you been getting up and going?
Yeah, I have been walking, not every day, because there are certain days where I feel like I have shit to do, so I don't have time to go do it.
Sure.
But usually after I'm done with my on-air shift or whatever, when I'm done voice tracking at 1:30, I will walk down to the gas station and buy like an iced tea. And then walk back. And that takes me about a half hour. And then 2 to 3, I usually eat lunch. And
like weekdays?
Yeah.
Because I've been eating lunch at 11 when working from home.
Yeah. That's when I normally eat lunch. I normally eat lunch at 11, but I'm on air from noon to 1:30. And well, I'm not on air.
You're near air.
Yeah. I'm breathing air. But normally I would eat lunch at 11. But since I am, eating breakfast regularly for the first time in years, I am not hungry at 11 a.m. anymore. And so instead of eating and starting my shift going like, oh gosh, I'm so full, I wait until I'm done to eat. But so yeah, it's been pretty a pretty big upset of my normal routine.
And you're a guy who likes routine.
I do. I'm a pretty routine oriented sort of person. So that's been the most annoying part about it. Literally everything, at least for me, I got the good bachelor internet. I got I got the I have no one who depends on me level of internet. So I don't really have any big tech annoyances or grievances. It's mostly just been the upending of my typical daily schedule that's been bothersome to me.
Right.
But yeah.
I did have a tech issue. I mean,
yeah,
because I have a small house and my internet does not reach across it. Apparently,
even our small
little house. Yeah. So
how old is your modem?
It's new. The wireless. We had an old one, and they came to replace it. I said, "Wow, holy shit! I've never seen a working one of these." And yes, they replaced it with something that was actually. I have
to call the folks at the museum.
Yeah, the Smithsonian wants this.
It belongs in a museum.
Well,
do you.
You know who has it right now?
Harrison Ford.
Top men. Yes.
Top men. I cannot get over the fact that you're barefoot right now.
I wore flip-flop. I didn't want to have to put on it.
It is almost December.
True.
In North Dakota, and you wore flip-flops.
I did.
Over to my house, my apartment. You wore flip-flops. I generally do not go barefoot in my own home for the simple fact that my feet are always cold.
Sure.
Like I get cold feet very easily. Not in the sense, I mean, I also do get, very anxious and apprehensive about events. Yeah. Apprehensive. No, I like my version.
Okay,
better.
we'll go with apprehensious.
Apprehensious.
Yeah.
But I do tend to, of course, suffer from anxiety based on events coming up in my life. But also, if I don't wear socks, my feet get really distractingly cold very quickly.
And I was wearing my now, mind you, this is my second day on the job because I was gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I did one Friday. Then that Sunday I got on a plane and left town, and now I'm doing a Friday again.
Yep. You're just Mr. Friday.
I'm Mr. Friday. I'm Joe Friday.
That's gonna be
doing.
Is your new nickname on air? Is it gonna be Mr. Friday?
Maybe.
Hi everybody, I'm Mr. Friday. People, I don't feel like DJs get to do that anymore.
What?
Like have names like Mr. Friday.
Sure.
Like it has to be, of course, DJs make up their names and their nicknames still, of course, except for me because I couldn't think of anything. So I just went with my real name. But like,
I worked with a dude named Soup.
Soup that was his on-air name was Soup.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little. I feel like if you're doing like if you're doing classic rock or like any rock channel, you can have kind of silly, nicknames.
That's why I'm Off Ramp Owen.
Yeah. And that's not even that includes your real name in it.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel like you haven't been able to since like the 60s and 70s been able to call yourself Mr. something that's not a name. Like
or Wolfman Jack. I mean, that guy was great.
You're not allowed to do that. I mean, you're allowed to do. People just don't do that anymore because it would feel anachronistic. Like in Fallout New Vegas, for example, which I've been playing a lot of in the last couple of months. The radio DJ is Mr. New Vegas, and that's oh no, I can never remember his name. People call him Mr. Las Vegas. He's like
Wayne Newton.
Yeah, it's Wayne Newton. They got Wayne Newton to do Mr. New Vegas in the game. Mr. New Vegas is also an artificial intelligence, which I didn't realize for a long time.
Really?
Which is why you cannot find him like a physical Mr. New Vegas in the game.
He's an AI.
Is because he's an AI created by Mr. House to just be a radio station for Southern Nevada. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of that. Were you talking about something else?
I don't
remember. Oh, because this is only your second day actually working from home.
Right, and I'm wearing no shoes in my basement.
I feel like that's got to be so cold down there.
It kind of is.
What? Just put on socks.
Yes, I can.
Put on socks.
Not a big deal. The last couple of weeks, my feet have been very warm because I was in the desert.
I suppose.
And there, I did not wear flip-flops because every plant around you wants to murder you.
That's true.
Yeah.
I remember when I found that out the hard way when I was 3 turning 4.
Yeah.
It was over my birthday. We went down to my grandparents' winter home in Arizona for my birthday. And we did a whole big Southwest trip.
Sure.
That included spending my birthday at my grandparents' place. And I was in their yard and I wanted to walk around barefoot because I, grew up on a lovely little acre and a half
with grass,
with beautifully manicured lawns that my dad spent a lot of time on. And, just walking around without a care in the world, just completely barefoot and comfortable. And then I was walking around it in their yard going, ow, 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 mommy, why does the ground hurt? Like every single thing wants to stick you.
Yeah.
And it's just, and the sand, of course, is hot and painful. It's just, why?
Yeah, there's scorpions. When I was down there, I wasn't sure what it was. I wasn't sure if it was a horse.
I thought you were about to say like a bug of some type, and you said I wasn't sure if it was a horse, and now I'm very intrigued.
It was a jackrabbit. The jackrabbits in the desert are fucking huge.
Oh, it was just a very large jackrabbit.
Yeah, I mean, it was... and I don't know, one thing I didn't understand was the fact, that thing, if it stood up on its hind legs, might have met me eye to eye.
They're very skinny and tall.
It's very skinny and tall, and then
the ears probably make a bit of an optical illusion in the sense that it's not really that big.
It was that big. I mean, and one thing it did is it jumped off the road into like some cactuses, and then I never saw anything again. I mean, it was gone.
Yeah,
and I don't know where it went.
Animals have a tendency to do that.
It's crazy.
That's a big problem with deer hunting. Is like I saw a deer. And it's gone forever. I don't, especially if there's not snow on the ground, unless you're like an expert tracker that's willing to spend hours and hours following every little sign to track this deer. It's like, well, it's gone.
Wait for the next one.
I guess we'll wait till we see the next one in 5 hours. Cause and like, especially me where like I had up until the last couple of years, I had pretty good eyesight and then I figured out I needed glasses, but like I have for the longest time I had the best eyesight in my family. It was the only one that didn't need glasses, and I can't spot deer for shit.
Really?
Like for me, I think it's just I don't know exactly what to look for. It's not like looking for things is not a trained skill. There is an art to looking for things in the distance. And that's a big part of hunting. And my dad is very good at it. He's also had a lot more opportunities to get good at it. I am not very good at it. I cannot spot deer for shit unless they're running in front of me, in which case I can, see them and shoot them pretty quickly, even if it's something that maybe I should have not pulled the trigger on and waited for something better. But
there you are.
Yeah, I realized the last time we went out, I have a tendency to just kind of shoot first and ask questions later. Or it's like, hey, we have an open tag. I just figured I'd take the shot. And it's kind of like, well, maybe we wanted a nicer one though. And so I think a couple of times I kind of was like, do you want me to shoot it? Do you want me to shoot? Yeah. And then get down there and just, oh, that's not very good. It's like, well, you told me to shoot it. So I did. But there was one a couple years ago that I don't remember exactly where I was aiming because it was just kind of like a quick, like, oh God, pop. I kind of shot it in the face. It died instantly.
Sure. Well, that's good. Didn't suffer.
But I shot it in the face. But anyway, that was a weird tangent. I watched a movie for a change.
Did you?
That was one that I haven't seen a million times before. Lord of the Rings. Which is just my tendency to just rewatch Lord of the Rings. No, I watched Honey Boy.
Really? How was that?
It was really, really good.
Because it was written by Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
Yeah.
And directed by Alma Harrell. It's really, really like Shia LaBeouf is, I think, unsurprisingly riveting throughout the whole film. He's not really the main character. I don't remember the name of the child actor,
but he's the father.
Yeah, he's the father. He's playing a character very heavily inspired by his own father, who he has a very complicated relationship with.
Right.
Shia LaBeouf's performance was absolutely just electrifying. I couldn't take my eyes off of him the whole time. And the child performer was also really good. People tend to forget about Lucas Hodges, who plays the adult version of the main character, who's recalling all these things that happened to him while he's in rehab.
Lucas Hodges or is Lucas Haas? No.
Lucas Hodges. Lucas Haas is a different
character. All right.
Lucas Hodges is kind of a very nondescript looking white man. Basically, he's just a very nondescript looking kind of handsome, blocky white man. Basically, it seems like a good actor. It's just he's kind of difficult to remember because he's very ordinary looking.
Okay.
But he was also very good. But that part is almost kind of weird, and I imagine it must have been weird a little bit for Shia to be like, okay, you're playing me basically at my worst, so do that, I guess. Do your best impression of me being an asshole.
Sure.
But yeah, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Very good movie. Very emotional movie. But yeah, great stuff. Great stuff.
He's got to sneeze. Think of a cow.
That didn't. It's not working.
What do you mean?
I thought of a cow,
and then you didn't sneeze.
But I wanted to sneeze. When I feel a sneeze coming,
you want to get that sneeze out.
Yeah, desperately, I would like to sneeze. Mm-hmm. So now, like the rest of, I've been my nose has been blue balled at this point.
You've been blue nosed.
I've been blue nosed. I've also been watching a lot of online because they started uploading it to YouTube here in the last year. The series Taskmaster,
really,
in the UK, hosted by Greg Davies, and a rotating cast of British comedians. Where the basic idea is Greg Davies and Alex Horne, who plays his little assistant, but really Alex Horne is actually the writer and creator of the show, and Greg Davies is basically there just to play the bad guy. But they have 5 comedians complete all of these like weird tasks and compete for points throughout the season. And it's the same cast for the whole season. And it's really very entertaining. There's a great, just hilarious and heartbreaking scene from the first episode of the second season where Joe Wilkinson, who is a comedian that is often on the show 8 out of 10 Cats does Countdown.
Okay.
He's this kind of schlubby, like very bearded looking, kind of just sad looking guy who says a lot of very outrageous things. He's on there, and he finished last in the season to nobody's surprise. But there was one task where there was this big red circle, and in the middle of it was a golf hole, like a pin, from golf. And they had to get a potato into the hole without touching the red mat that was around it.
Okay.
People came up with various solutions. Joe's first idea was to just throw it into the hole, and he got it on the first try. It was like a 10-foot toss, and he just threw it into the hole first try. And it was perfect, and he was so happy and so proud of himself. And then live in front of the studio audience, they're like, that was so impressive, Joe. Let's review the footage. And they show him doing it a couple of times, and each time the camera zooms further and further in on his foot.
Oh, no.
And the very tip of his foot was touching the red. After that, just, please don't take it away from me, Greg. It's the most impressive thing I've ever done. Also, at the beginning of every episode, they're supposed to bring an item of theirs that fulfills a certain prompt. And then Greg decides which one is going to be worth the most points. And then they compete to win that item and all the other items at the end of the episode. And you're kind of encouraged to bring things that are of a higher value to you for more points. Joe brought his wedding certificate.
Okay.
He lost the episode. So he had to give away his wedding certificate. His wife also didn't know he brought it.
She didn't know he was prepared to do that.
No, Taskmaster is very funny. I think the first 7 seasons you can watch on just for free on YouTube on their official channel. And then the latest 3 seasons are there, but for some reason they're region locked. At the moment. I don't know if they're going to get unlocked later on, but the last 3 seasons you can't watch in the US. So I guess if you have a VPN, you're fine. I don't have a VPN because it's just another fucking thing I'd have to pay for. What else? Oh, I found a new band. They're called Numenorian. They're
Numenorian.
Yeah.
Nice.
They're a Canadian like post black metal or like black gaze type band where it's black metal shoegaze. It's an awkward portmanteau to say because people think you're talking about like is this a band made up of African-American homosexuals? It's like,
Black
no,
gays.
No, that's not what it is.
No,
That would be interesting, but that's not what it is. No, they're just this very atmospheric and emotional and sad black metal band. So that's why it's the most Kayle band I've discovered in a really long time.
Yeah.
It is the most me band in quite some, probably since I've discovered Panopticon. It is the most me band that there's been. I am getting a new chair.
Nice.
Finally upgrading to something.
What are you doing with this one?
I'm giving this to Quinn.
Oh, okay.
But no, I'm getting a chair that better fits my fat ass.
Nice.
Especially considering I have to sit in this chair far more than normal at this point. So I might as well do something that does not make the sides of my thighs hurt. I'm excited. Stargate is coming to Netflix.
Nice.
Stargate SG-1, the TV show.
I've never watched it.
It's very good. Well, I guess I can't. I don't know if I can confidently say that it's very good. Yeah. I have a lot of nostalgia attached to that show.
Were you a child when you watched this?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was we watched it constantly in our, like, it was on Sci-Fi. It was airing on Sci-Fi, and then old episodes would be, would be syndicated, and we would, it was always on. And we watched SG-1 a lot, and we watched Stargate Atlantis, and we watched Stargate Universe when it was out.
Which one is Kratos on?
This is SG-1.
SG-1. Okay.
Christopher Judge plays Teal'c, who is an amazing character. Teal'c is to the point. It's to the point almost where, like, when I was playing God of War, I was just like, this version of Kratos is basically just Teal'c. Teal'c is a bit less of an asshole than Kratos.
Yeah.
In fact, Teal'c isn't really an asshole at all. Like, Kratos is trying really, really hard, but he still ends up being a dick most of the time.
Well, not most of the time. I mean, if you want to compare God of War 4 to any of the other three games,
he's made leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
But like, I guess it's mostly just they're both very stoic and played by Christopher Judge, I suppose. But it's like, I can't not picture Teal'c saying some of those things. I think Teal'c also has a much more direct relationship with his own son, from what I remember of SG-1. Teal'c has a much better relation. Teal'c is a better dad than Kratos.
Well, yeah, Kratos is an absentee dad.
Yeah, Teal'c is a great character. SG-1's just a fantastic show.
I want to watch it.
Yeah. You should. It's really good. Started in 1997, I think. And ran, I think SG-1 ran regularly till 2008. It's basically the American science fiction version of Cheers, in the sense that there's a ton of episodes. It was on for such a long time.
Everyone's drunk.
And everyone's always drunk. And it's good. I think it's good. I remember it being good. I think the first couple of seasons aired on Showtime.
Really?
Which I didn't know, because I don't think I had actually seen like any episodes from the first season until I was like 19.
Oh, wow.
And I think my mom had it on because it was on, I think it used to be on Netflix, and then it was off Netflix for a bit or something like that. It was the first episode of SG-1, and there was boobs. And I was just like, there's tits in Stargate? What? Since when? I didn't know that.
It's porn Stargate.
That's gotta be a thing, right?
It's gotta be.
That's gotta be a thing. And the show was on the air for 11 years. There's gotta be Stargate porn. So give me a moment.
Google
to reference a different science fiction series. I'll be in my bunk.
When does the next season of that come out?
Will the next season of Firefly come out?
Yeah. When is that?
That's a great question. I've heard some rumors.
Did you remember when they did that practical joke on Netflix? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Where it was new episodes.
And everybody's like, what?
Fuck you. Fuck you, Netflix. But thank you for putting Stargate on your service. In the later seasons of SG-1, Morena Baccarin periodically guest stars as
Speaking of Firefly.
And in Stargate Atlantis, Jewel Stiate. I never know how to say her last name. Kayle.
Okay, sure.
From Firefly is becomes the doctor for the last couple seasons of Stargate Atlantis. And, you know, she's just her regular perky, cute as a button self. And I think simply because she has just such a strong Canadian accent, her character's not Canadian, but her character is from Wisconsin, so she didn't really have to work to hide the accent.
Wisconsin and Canada, very similar.
They're pretty close. So they didn't make her do a whole lot of work to sound, American. But yeah, God, I love Stargate. So Stargate got a lot of nostalgia. Speaking of nostalgia, Avenged Sevenfold.
Avenged Sevenfold, hey!
A Segway.
Yay, hooray!
A Segway.
It's a stand-up motorized bike.
We almost never bother with Segways. No, we don't. But hey. Anyway. Dear listener, can you tell that the energy is off tonight?
It is a bit off. I mean, it's definitely off for me because I've had it all sapped out of me over the last couple of weeks.
No, I mean, I've been all right, but it's just I've found myself with very little motivation to do anything with the latter half of my day. It's just been like, because I've been here the whole time looking at these computer screens, sitting in this chair
alone.
The things that I would normally like to do in my free time involve sitting in this chair looking at those computer screens.
Sure.
And I just don't want to do that. And it pisses me off because it's like, there's video games I want to play, but I don't want to be here anymore.
Right.
So that kind of sucks. Avenged Sevenfold, Nightmare. It's an album, came out 2010 when little old Kayle was 13 years old, going to be 14 years old. And this was the coolest shit I had ever heard in my whole life. I had been like trying to get into heavy music for a bit. My buddy Mason had like let me, because I didn't care about music. I didn't really care about music when I was a kid. Nothing really, like it was just like, oh, this is on the radio, this is pretty good. And so I'd listen to whatever. I didn't have any particular music taste, so like the CDs I had was like Nickelback and stuff. It was stuff that I had easy access to. And we were at a speech meet, and my friend, I was bored, and I had been listening to I hadn't really been listening to any. This was actually, I was about to say like he let me listen to A Day to Remember or something, but no, that was later on. This was when I got into Linkin Park, because he had a bunch of Linkin Park stuff on his iPod, and he let me listen to it. He basically just gave me his iPod for like an hour while he went to go compete for a while. And so because I think I was done and he was like in finals or something. And so I was just sitting around in the auditorium. I think we were in Dickinson, at Dickinson State. They have a very nice auditorium at Dickinson State. The rest of the campus, not so nice.
No, well, it's in Dickinson. So
yeah, it's Dickinson.
Yeah.
But so I was just sitting around in the auditorium and like, wow, Linkin Park, super cool. And so I had a CD player. I had a little, you couldn't really, I think it was a Sony maybe, but it wasn't a Walkman.
Sure.
Because if I were to walk with it, it would have skipped. I don't think this CD player had anti-skip on it. This was, and it wasn't a super old CD player either.
Right. It was just super cheap.
I think it was actually pretty old at the time. Now that I think about it, I think that was a hand-me-down from my oldest sister. I think
It came with 2 units. It was it had a battery pack.
it did not. It was self-contained, but it did not have anti-skip. I think. But anyway, so it was like, got into Linkin Park for a bit, and got a couple of hand-me-down iPods, and then it was around the time that I got a iPod Touch. My first iPod Touch. I think it was for my 14th birthday. I had started getting into, like, my Mason introduced me to Avenged Sevenfold, and so I was like, oh, this is super cool. This is heavy metal, dude. This is so awesome. And Nightmare had just come out at that point it was not quite yet out. Nightmare came out in April. Oh wait, I'm thinking of 2011 now. Mm-hmm. I skipped ahead. So Nightmare came out April 2010.
Right.
I think I didn't really get into it until like winter of the winter of 2010 going into 2011. Mm-hmm. I had the iPod Touch. And then this album I kind of began to associate this album in particular and a couple of A Day to Remember albums, I think, with the shittiest summer in North Dakota's recent history.
Yeah, I remember that summer.
Yeah. If you lived near a river, you had a bad time that summer. I guess Fargo was all right. Yeah. I think there was a little bit of flooding in Fargo, and it was not nearly as bad as
the Red River
here. And early in the summer, the Missouri was pretty bad too. Mm-hmm. Bad enough that we moved out. Nothing got damaged, but we were not in the house for a couple of months, and that sucked. Especially being 14 years old.
Sure.
Just in.
Well, you were 15 by the summer of 2011.
No, I got my timeline wrong again. So now I'm 14.
Okay.
Now I was 14 when I discovered this. When I discovered Avenged Sevenfold, and I had it introduced to me.
The summer before the flood.
Somewhere in the nebulous haze of hormones that was puberty.
Sure.
Avenged Sevenfold was presented to me. Like I don't remember much of that period, and I try the hardest I possibly can not to, because I was just a little monster. Right. Just I don't find the show Big Mouth very funny. Mm-hmm. I hate the character design. I don't find it very funny, but I will admit the concept of, these are, pubescent boys and girls, and the representation of puberty is this horrifying monster that makes them do, gross, terrible things. That is extremely clever. Sure. That's very clever. I think it's a very good idea, and I identify with that. I just don't think the rest of the show is very funny, and it's just bad to look at. It's just bad looking. Uh-huh. It's like, do you remember why were so many Nickelodeon shows in particular in the late 90s to early 2000s? Why were they all so fucking ugly?
Like what shows do you mean?
Like Rocko's Modern Life or Rugrats or Ren and Stimpy. Like Ren and Stimpy was the point was that it was sort of ugly and gross looking. But there's so many other cartoons where perfectly nice things happen.
Like the Klasky Supo.
But the cartoons, character designs are just really ugly looking and gross.
Like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah, Courage is in there, but again, that's intentional because Courage is a horror series. Rugrats, specifically Rugrats, I guess, is my problem. Is there's no reason for all these babies to be so fucking lumpy. Why is Tommy Pickles? Why is his head all lumpy? What the fuck is the deal with that? All the character design and the color palette is just color drained vomit. It's I don't know why they're all so ugly. that was a weird tangent. But yeah, so I listened to this album a lot. I listened to a lot of Avenged Sevenfold throughout like early high school, and it was vaguely the heaviest thing I listened to for a couple of years, as I kind of like, there was a while there where I was not interested in bands that had any type of screamed vocals.
Yeah.
I didn't find that appealing. I thought it was, I didn't have an inroad to it. I didn't know the names of bands that did that until it was like I got shown like heavier A Day to Remember stuff. And it started to click with me. And then that led to like Architects and Parkway Drive and Killswitch Engage and so on and so forth until we get to now with me, one of my favorite bands being Cattle Decapitation.
Yeah.
It's like
fantastic band.
Like, so Avenged Sevenfold was really kind of my inroad. And I think also like their early albums is also what started to get me into bands with screamed vocals, because their first two albums are very much early 2000s metalcore, where metalcore hadn't really developed into what it is today. Metalcore was a much more sort of nebulous thing, where a lot of it was just like guys that had grown up going to a lot of punk shows and maybe had been in punk bands, but also listened to a bunch of metal and started to combine more of those influences together. And so it was like, it hadn't established itself as a genre. It was just like, oh, what is this sound? Well, like that's kind of metal, but that's kind of hardcore. That's kind of hardcore punk. So this is metalcore.
Sure.
Like that was the era that like Converge was getting started, where like Converge has kept on doing their own thing. But like that sort of style of kind of chaotic, we don't really know what we're doing, sort of sound. And a lot of those guys, were in of that generation were like a bit more established, where maybe they were in their mid to late 20s. They'd been in a couple of bands at that point. Whereas everyone in Avenged Sevenfold was like 19 when they made their first album. And like the Rev, who was their drummer up until he passed away.
Right. He didn't drum after that.
He did. Yeah. He did not do much drumming after that.
Yeah.
Maybe he did.
Who knows?
From the grave. But he had been a drummer in like a ska band before they made Avenged Sevenfold. But like, he had grown up listening to like Frank Zappa and stuff like that. So, but it was so Avenged Sevenfold. They're if you don't know anything about them other than they're a band that is popular. They're from Huntington Beach, California. Like I said, their first couple of albums were sort of metalcore, and then album 3, they kind of their sound really kind of shifted towards
more rock.
Yeah, more hard rock type oriented sound, or like even kind of blues rock type stuff at times, although it's a bit more aggressive than a lot of blues rock type stuff. But their sound changed to become more radio friendly, I guess, and it got them insanely popular. They used to be they're still very popular, but they used to be everywhere.
Sure.
Like you used to see like Deathbat t-shirts all the time, even around here. And it's you don't see that anymore because their popularity has kind of declined since around 2010. Like Nightmare was kind of a sort of a turning point where it just sort of seems like they were just, rocketing upward, and then they've started to kind of decline. I don't know if it necessarily has anything to do with the Rev's death, but
when did the Rev die? Did he die before this album?
He died while they were writing and recording this. So
some of it is him?
Some of the drums is the Rev. Some of the drums is Mike Portnoy. But he was like, they all kind of take turns, or at least I think so they all have stage names, right?
Right.
So there's Matt Sanders, who's M Shadows. That's the lead singer. You have Sinister Gates, who is Brian Hayner. I think he's got a couple of hyphens before that. But he's the lead singer, or not lead singer. He's the lead guitarist. Stage name is Sinister Gates. We have rhythm guitarist Zachy Vengeance, whose full name I cannot remember. And then we also have another full name I don't remember, Johnny Christ on bass.
Johnny Christ?
His name is Johnny Christ, everybody. Again, they were 19 when they came up with this shit. And it's
Johnny Christ.
They've just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah. Maybe he's related to Tommy.
Tommy Christ.
Yeah. From the band Ludacris.
Perhaps.
Which was a early sort of thrash metal band, before the rapper Ludacris.
Honestly, it might be.
That's Tommy's real name.
These, I think if you listen to, especially if you listen to Hail to the King, which is an album I'm not fond of.
Yeah.
You will notice that these guys really like Metallica.
Yeah. It's very clear.
I think it was sort of like every young band, starting out really just wearing your influences on your sleeve and wanting to be like your favorite guys, but then sort of realizing that, we can continue to succeed just doing this and just basically, trying to be Metallica. We don't really have to try super hard to develop our own sound, because the people who like us don't know about Metallica, because everyone who likes us is 13.
Sure.
And is not super familiar with Metallica, and so they're not.
Metallica did the same thing, so
yeah. Get to a certain point and then stop trying.
Well, they did that. But I mean, they actually played covers. They were a cover band.
Yeah.
They played all these great, really massive heavy metal songs that everybody in LA had no idea were cover songs, because they were from British bands that hadn't made their way over here yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of I was about to say another word that doesn't exist. I was going to say hyperbolous. Is hyperbolous? It can't be a word.
Well, there's a hyperbola. That's a thing, but I don't think.
Yeah. Well, you use hyperbole.
Maybe you were going to be hyperbolic.
Thank you. That's the word. I'm probably being a little hyperbolic as far as their influences go, because I think they do try, but it's like I had a hard time listening to this. Harder than maybe I thought, or
again now.
Yeah, revisiting this, because unlike you, where Slayer is the band that changed everything for you,
right?
And you can go back at any point and listen to Rain in Blood, and it's just as good as it always has been.
Yes, because
it's fucking Slayer,
right?
I listen to this and just go wow, my tastes have really changed.
Yeah.
My taste in music has really, really developed past this, to the point where I don't really care for most of this. There's a few songs on this where I think they were really, really trying.
Oh yeah.
And that shows, and I like those songs better. And there are other songs where it's just kind of this is just, feels like a Metallica ripoff.
Right.
It's just, it seems like, this is just going to be another classic Avenged Sevenfold sort of fun song that we don't put a whole ton of work into, but it's it's going to be fun to play live. And that's how I feel like a lot of rock bands write music, is just, we're not going to try super hard with this. We're just going to write something we think is fun. And hopefully audiences will think will also think it's fun, and we're going to perform. I feel like AC/DC has done that for a very long time.
Sure, but that's their job.
Yeah, and
they have a new album out.
I still think that's so weird that they decided to make more music.
Right.
Without Angus died, didn't he, or was it Neil?
No. Neil?
No. Who the fuck? There's Angus.
You're talking
Angus,
about
who's the
Angus? Malcolm.
Malcolm. Who the fuck is Neil Young?
Neil Young, Canadians. He was part of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young.
Oh yeah.
He also did the song "Keep on Rotting in the Free World."
I don't
actually Keep on Rocking.
Yeah. Is Keep on Rotting in a Free World? Is that a cover?
It's a Carcass song.
Of course it is. I think I knew that. Somewhere in my brain. Obviously, I didn't know it well enough. But
did we ever? Yeah, we did a Carcass.
Yeah, we did Carcass for your first Death Metal December.
Yes.
Which is coming up very soon.
The next week.
Next week already. Holy God.
Yeah.
I keep on saying, like, it's almost December. Why are you not wearing shoes? And then I keep on forgetting myself that, oh, yeah, it's almost December.
It is almost December.
I think partially it's because we haven't had really any snow that's stuck around. So it's... I don't remember where I was at. Just talking.
We're talking about Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah, how they just, there's like half of this album they didn't really try all that hard with. And it was just sort of the same thing that they had been writing. And I think that was a lot of that is stuff that they had completely written maybe before the Rev had died.
Yeah. And
then there's a lot of the slower paced, more.
There is a lot of stuff that starts out with acoustic guitar and single string plucked and some really melodic vocals.
Yes. I think a lot of that stuff is probably what came after. Because he passed away in December, I think, of 2009. And then this came out in April of 2010. So they were in the middle of things, basically. They were... Up until the most recent album that came out, they were on Warner Brothers records because they were very popular. So they could be on Warner Brothers.
Right.
Now they're on Capitol, which is, not
still big.
Yeah. Not a small, not by any means a small, what's the name? Record label. I can't remember anything.
Oh, no.
Anymore. This brain, no work. But no, so they changed record labels a while ago. But in any case, there's like about half of this album is more melodic, more thoughtful, kind of sad stuff, I guess. There's does this album slap? I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
I don't want to get hyperbolic or...
I don't want to be hyperbolic or nothing.
Does it slap? It slaps.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I think part of my issue with this is I feel like the guitar tone is oddly understated.
A bit, yeah.
I feel like I feel like the songwriting, the riffage is a little thin. There's not a lot of riffage going on here. Like I kind of, you listen to like thrash metal, for example, rhythm guitar usually has a lot going on.
Right.
This album, rhythm guitar is very boring for most of it.
It switches chords.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
The rhythm guitar on this album is really, really boring. And I feel like it wouldn't be nearly as noticeable if the guitar tone was a bit beefier.
Sure.
But it's just there's distortion, but it's a very clean distortion. It's very crisp. It's not particularly warm. It's really well produced, as you would expect for a band of their popularity level, but it's missing some warmth and some volume in the texture sense. It's a little thin. And I feel like some of my problems with the songwriting would be alleviated if things felt a bit more naturalistic in that sort of sense. Because there's some of the heavier songs where I'm listening to it and going like, I thought this was heavy? Seriously? I thought this was heavy at some point? Or like there's a couple of songs like God Hates Us, for example.
Sure.
Just the most generic possible metal song title.
When did the Slayer album God Hates Us All come out? Was that?
I think
that was before this.
Maybe.
God Hates Us All. I mean, that's the refrain from that song.
It literally might just be.
Yeah.
I don't remember when the Slayer album came out.
Yeah.
But it just might be a reference to Slayer, because again, these guys are big fans of
other bands.
Big fans of other bands.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of other bands, because Jimmy Sullivan died in the middle of recording things.
Yeah.
They had one of his idols, and what I've always thought was a really cool thing for him to have done. One of the Rev's like biggest drumming inspirations was Mike Portnoy.
Sure.
Mike at the time was kind of not super keen on continuing to do Dream Theater. Like, this was at a point where Mike was just like, I would like Dream Theater to take a hiatus for a while. And eventually Dream Theater was like, no. And if you want your hiatus, you can quit.
So it was basically his fucking nightmare.
Hey, reference.
Yes.
I think some of the drama with Dream Theater happened after the whole Avenged Sevenfold business did. But Mike Portnoy came in to basically finish recording and then toured with them for the rest of 2010.
Sure.
Until the end of the year. And eventually they found a new drummer, which was Aaron Illiday, who left in 2015 and was replaced by, I don't remember. I want to say Brandon Wackerman or something like that.
Great name for a drummer.
Yeah, he's been in a session musician for a whole bunch. He was like a drummer for Tenacious D for a while, and he's worked with a bunch of like big bands as like a session drummer or something like that. But anyway, I mean, I kind of wish Mike had a bit more work to do for some of it. Like, and I'm tempted to go back and listen to more of like City of Evil and their self-titled album to see if the Rev's drumming is as impressive as I remember it being. But I don't know. He was generally well respected as a drummer in the metal community, but I don't know how much of that comes down to, this band is really popular, so of course the people in the band are super good musicians. I don't know how much of that, how much their popularity factors into their actual skill as musicians.
I don't know that either, Lars.
Lars Ulrich. What a guy.
Yeah.
What a guy, that Lars Ulrich. I felt like I remember this album being better reviewed than it was. It has a 62 on Metacritic.
Really? That's an F.
Yeah, that's fairly 62 on Metacritic. Still says generally favorable reviews.
Yeah.
But if you put that on like the IGN scale, that's like the worst game they've ever played. If IGN gives something a 6.2, this is complete trash.
Recall this game.
Yeah, that you should never, do not touch this game with a 10-foot pole. This will brick your computer. Like that's how IGN's scale is not a 1 through 10, or a 0 through 10, it's a 5 through 10.
Right.
Really. And the lowest score you can get is 5. Unless something is so hilariously bad that they get to write a funny review and give it a 1. Any game that they've been given money for will get at least a 5. That's how games journalism works. But yeah. Avenged Sevenfold, 62. I mean, like, I don't know if I entirely disagree with it. 14-year-old me would be like, what the fuck, dude? This is the greatest album ever. It's the shit. This is the shit. But, 24-year-old me is going like, yeah.
There's been a lot of those for me.
Yeah.
But there we are. I enjoyed it. It was a fun little romp.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts.
Some of my thoughts, I thought, okay, I listened to some of the music that I listened to when I was 14. And it sounds kind of like this.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I listened to when I was 14, it was doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
So this in 2010 comes off as a little cliche.
I know. I've been kind of struggling to find that. I think cliche is maybe the best term for a lot of the stuff I don't like about this album is that it comes off as being very cliche. At the time, the first time I listened to it, I didn't know any better.
Well, sure.
But now I do. And I've listened to things that came before this that I find more impressive and infinitely more inventive. Like there's nothing new whatsoever going on in this album. Of course, it's increasingly more difficult to do new things in music, period. But
especially if you're sticking to a genre that's been around.
Yeah, for a while. And these guys doing hard rock and just general heavy metal.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of fertile ground in their soil.
No.
Or at the very least, there's not a lot of undiscovered species that you can introduce to the rest of science.
Right.
As a whole. This is some real wheat. These are some staples that have been arranged into an edible and a comfortably edible meal. But one that, if you have had it many times before, is not going to be particularly memorable.
Sure.
If you've never had meatloaf and mashed potatoes, then if you are someone who's never had meatloaf and mashed potatoes and you're not a vegan and you will eat meatloaf,
that's the best thing ever.
And you try meatloaf and mashed potatoes, you're probably going to go, holy fuck, this is great. But if you've ever had meatloaf, if you're like every single person in the Midwest who's not a vegan, and you've had, even some vegans have had it and then decided, they weren't going to do that anymore. But like if you've had meatloaf and mashed potatoes, then you're going to go, yeah, that was meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Yeah. It was fine.
Although I've had some pretty damn good meatloaf and mashed potatoes.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying you can't have good meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Much to the contrary. It's just that I think the bar for edible meatloaf, meatloaf and mashed potatoes that you would not complain about.
Sure.
The bar is very low.
Oh, I know.
It would have to be really bad for me to go like, yeah, that sucked.
Ask the people at Swanson. I mean,
at Swanson.
The Swanson frozen dinners,
frozen dinner meatloaf and mashed potatoes,
which I've eaten many, many thousands of times over my life. And every time I eat it, I go, the fuck did I just spend 70 cents on?
This is terrible.
This is awful.
This is not even worth 70 cents.
This doesn't have the texture of meat.
Meatloaf and mashed potatoes.
Yeah. I'm going to buy it again.
You're going to eat it.
And I'm going to eat it. Yeah.
What's that? What? Is that Kyle Kinane joke? Or it's just like, what are you doing? Look at what you're doing. What are you doing? You're going to eat it.
You're going to eat it.
About gas station hot dogs or something like that. Yeah. I don't remember. But yeah, there's nothing glaringly wrong with this. I think like some of the things to like is there's a couple of the songs where they really tried a bit more, where I think like, oh, you know what? Sinister Gates is a really good guitarist. Sure. He was actually trying and put together a really intricate guitar solo that time. Like that was really cool. And there was a couple times where just like, oh yeah, no, that's a bit more worthy of Mike Portnoy right there. And I think M. Shadows is a good singer. I like his voice. At the very least, I like it when he is going full tilt and belting, because his voice is so sandpapery.
Sure.
I think he had, if I remember correctly, he had the same vocal coach that basically taught Axl Rose to do that. The very sandpapery kind of belt singing, I guess. That's not a technical term.
Sandpaper belt?
Yeah, but like there's
belter. You can just have an electric belter.
He has a lot of grit in his voice, without it being so gravelly that it basically sounds like grumbling, like, late stage Tom Waits or whatever. I guess that's just Tom Waits talking these days. It sounds like Tom Waits's voice is the closest I think you can get to how I imagine the voice of Death from Discworld is supposed to sound, where it's like they describe Death's voice as somehow sounding like two gigantic slabs of stone grinding together.
Yeah.
It's like, that's kind of Tom Waits right there.
Sure.
There's Tom Waits. I think the only movie I've seen Tom, I mean, as far as his acting career goes, I watched Seven Psychopaths.
Sure.
That he was in.
You didn't see the...
I haven't seen The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Buster Scruggs.
I know he's in that.
Very good.
But
I think the first thing I saw him in was Article 99 was the name of the movie. And it was a movie about how veterans hospitals are underfunded. And he was a crazy person talking to himself. And sometimes I looking at the screen going, I wonder if this isn't just found footage.
Yeah, he was a crazy person talking to himself. Are we sure they didn't just turn the camera on without telling him?
And let it roll.
It's Tom Waits. What's your favorite song on this year album?
Well, the title track is the catchiest, I think.
Nightmare is the catchiest. I think it's the one that with some editing got the most radio play.
Sure.
Although I think what's the name of the song? All of a sudden I can't remember.
I don't remember that one at all.
Well, it's not the melody. I just can't remember, and I'm trying to just make vaguely entertaining noises.
Sure.
While half of my brain tries to do the thinking as the other half of my brain does the talking. And the song is so far away. I think that got a fair amount of radio play.
Sure.
That is the most emotional song on the album, I think.
And was it Buried Alive?
Yeah, I wrote down Buried Alive as one of my favorites.
Yeah, Buried Alive
is out of the more aggressive side of the album. I think that's the one that. But
that's not really a totally aggressive. I mean, it has aggressive parts to it. But
yeah, it's not totally aggressive.
It's dynamic,
but it's the most interesting out of the ones that are not complete like blues rock sort of style songs. I think out of the ones that are more heavy metal, it's the one that they put the most work into.
The one that seems like maybe they were trying to do something different. The song Fiction.
Oh yeah, Fiction is weird.
Yeah.
Fiction's a really weird track. That one was actually that one was written by the Rev a couple of days before he died.
Wow.
And it was the working title for the song was just Death, which is just one of those weird coincidences. But that one's really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know who the hell is singing. There's someone in like the last verse, one of the last verses of the song, sounds like they were in a hospital bed with like a bunch of tubes up their nose singing. I don't know who that was, but it sounded really weird. I think one of the other voices on that is just Sinister Gates, who doesn't have a great singing voice, but he ended up having to do backup vocals because normally that was the Rev's job.
Right.
Kind of another similarity with Mike Portnoy, where Mike Portnoy did backing vocals for Dream Theater forever and ever. And then after he left, John Petrucci started filling in on backing vocals. I don't know why it keeps on. I think it's just because I keep on reading Mike Portnoy's name when I'm looking stuff up about this album. But I keep on thinking of the meme where it's just Mike Mangini breathes everyone existence. How dare you?
Oh,
I feel bad for Mike Mangini.
He's a talented dude.
He's a good drummer. It's just people are so
mad that he's not Mike Portnoy.
Yeah, people are just so attached to Mike Portnoy that it's just give him a chance. He's a good drummer. God's sake. Although I will admit that drum kit he plays is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's stupid looking. He has a whole bunch of drums like way up top.
It's like Tom's.
Like way up. Sure. I don't know why. They're like a couple of feet above his head. I don't get it. I'm sure he plays them just fine.
Sure.
But I don't get it. Anyway. I also wrote down. I really like the song "Tonight the World Dies."
Yeah.
I like that one. It's a very moody song, and I like "Victim" as well.
Mm-hmm.
"Victim" is one of the more very like. This is just a rock. This is just like a very generic kind of rock song.
Yeah.
But I like the lyrics. I like the emotion. I think they put some more soul into that one. Than a couple of these other ones. They apparently used up a lot of soul on this album because Hail to the King didn't really have any.
That was the follow-up to this.
Such a fucking boring album.
I mean, the title track to that one is, once again, catchy.
Yeah, but it's just the least special song you'll ever hear.
Right.
It's just Hail to the King was so boring. And then The Stage, which came out in 2016, attempted to be a bit more interesting, and they attempted to go in like a slightly more progressive direction. It mostly worked. I was very over Avenged Sevenfold by that point, but I heard they had a new album out, so I listened to it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I didn't really listen to it all that much ever again. But and they're working on new stuff right now. Yeah, I think also The Stage, the marketing for that was non-existent because they decided to do like a surprise, it's out sort of thing.
Sure. That's
which
not a great idea.
For a metal band to have done that, it went pretty well. But like sort of the declining popularity, it has by a very wide margin the lowest album sales of the current era. At the very least, you know, since they started like charting and, you know, having albums getting put on Billboard and stuff like that, it has the by far the lowest. I think Hail to the King, like first year sales or something like that was somewhere around 800,000 or something like that. And The Stage was 170. Yeah,
big drop.
Big drop for what I honestly think is a much better album. But that's kind of how it goes with general audiences. Is like, oh, you really put a lot of work into this.
Doesn't matter.
But yeah, what album do you think you'll bestow upon
what
this?
Album?
Like, what? How many times have I done that? I've done that a lot of times.
I think so. Yeah.
What medal are you bestowing upon this album, like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
I think it was very well done, well put together, well intentioned. It deserves at least a silver.
Yeah, I agree. For the sake of my 14-year-old self, I have to at least give it a silver. I don't think it's worthy of a bronze. It's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
Nothing on here offended me to listen to.
Right.
It's just, you know, I usually reserve bronze for things that I don't feel compelled to go back to.
Sure.
And this is honestly that, much as I wish that were not the case. I wish that the stuff that was really compelling to me when I was 14 was still entertaining to me, but it's not.
No.
The spirit of what I liked is still there, where to me, this was like, you know, cool and weird and different because I was one of like 3 people in my whole school that, you know, liked this sort of stuff. And you know, that idea of discovering something that not a lot of people are into and like, oh, this is, you know, I guess it's the black metal ideal of true, the stuff that's, you know, stuff that's not fake, bro.
Right.
That sort of idea of wanting to find that kind of music has stuck with me, but exactly what I personally think represents that ideal has changed drastically. And has also it's changed drastically, but is also not specific to any genre whatsoever. It's just like, oh, these guys aren't sellouts. They're pretty good.
I can dig it.
Yeah, I can dig it. As long as it's not music made by committee, then I will almost always find something to like about it. If you actually write your own fucking music,
sure,
whether as a band or as a solo artist, I will immediately like it 50% more than I would otherwise. I think that's kind of how it works with me. Maybe that's not a great way to listen to music, but it's just how it works with me. So yeah, silver. So it's already December next week, as we've mentioned many times. That means it's time for Death Metal December. Woo! It's already here. It's the most brutal time of the year. Almost. So you're gonna have the first week.
All right.
What do you think?
Well, I had thought one thing, but for some reason I changed my mind. I'd like to start off with the album "Cause of Death"
by
Obituary.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
Let's get fucking nasty. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hurt my voice. All right. Well, next week, Cause of Death by Obituary. Stay tuned for that. Until then, I think I'm still Kayle Borner.
I'm pretty much still OJ.
Good to hear.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. Congratulations.